Amazing. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to share my screen as we get started. There we go. And hopefully you all can see my screen now. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Putting Youth Voice into Practice with the Afterschool Alliance and the North Dakota Statewide Afterschool Network. I'm Leah Silverberg. I work at the Afterschool Alliance for an initiative we have called the Collective for Youth Empowerment in STEM and Society. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you all about youth voice and how we can be doing youth voice in after school. So on our agenda today, we're going to hear a bit about the Afterschool Alliance and the Collective for Youth Empowerment in STEM and Society. We're going to talk about what is youth voice, what kind of youth voice work that you're all doing. We're going to talk about Heart's Ladder, which is a framework to think about youth voice work in our programs. We're going to hear from young people along the way about what they think youth voice is and what it means to them, as well as how to do youth voice with younger students, since we often think of this only existing in spaces for older students. We're going to think about the programming we're already doing and look at next steps to do youth voice in maybe a slightly different way than you've been doing it. And then we're going to hear from some programs about ways to do youth voice programming and things that you can start implementing tomorrow in your youth voice journey. So I will say we're a smaller group today, but I am going to try getting everyone talking and interacting along the way. We're small enough that I don't think we'll have to actually go into breakout rooms, so we can just share in the group. And I've worked with students in all age ranges, so I am very comfortable with the silence of waiting until someone gets the courage to speak up. So hopefully we'll be able to have a great conversation about the programming that you all are doing, and really examine how we can be doing youth voice in quality and comprehensive ways. So what is the Collective for Youth Empowerment in STEM and Society? I'll start more with some background about myself. I've been at the Afterschool Alliance for 8 years. The Afterschool Alliance is a nonprofit based out of Washington, D.C., focused on expanding access to after-school programs nationwide. We work very closely with all of the statewide after-school networks, so the North Dakota network, as well as the after-school networks in all the other states across the country. And during my time at the Afterschool Alliance, I've really focused on our STEM and youth voice initiatives. Really looking at how we can elevate the voices of young people so that they can make an impact in their communities and then also nationally. I started our youth ambassador program at the Alliance, where we worked with a handful of students across the country and gave them advocacy training so that they could speak on behalf of their after school programs and why those opportunities were important. I've worked with the STEM Next Opportunity Fund, running their Million Girls Moonshot Flight Crew, which is a STEM advocacy program for young women and gender nonconforming youth to speak on behalf of STEM opportunities in their communities. And now I work for the Collective for Youth Empowerment in STEM and Society, which is an initiative at the Alliance really focused at expanding the opportunities and formalizing the pathways for young people to create the change that they want to see in their communities through after school programs. So we work with programs across the country that operate in STEM, civic engagement, and youth empowerment spaces. And I like to think of that as a Venn diagram of those three things, with everyone kind of trying to move toward the center of that Venn diagram, where young people are using STEM as a tool to create change in their communities that is based on the changes that they would like to see and implement. So STEM and civic engagement being the tools that young people use to really create change. We're a network of programs, researchers, and leaders across the after school and out of school time field. We have some partners that are in the formal school day as well. And we're a learning community, as well as we're a connector for programs that aren't yet doing this work, to make sure that you have the resources to start implementing STEM, civic engagement, and youth empowerment in your programs, if that's something that you would like to do. So we bring together folks, like I said, in the STEM, civic engagement, and after school space. And we want to deepen the connections across programs, make sure that we're elevating the best practices of doing this kind of work. We're building the capacity of programs to do more of this work, maybe do it better, and then also to start doing this work if it's not something that you're already doing. And then we distill research and advocate for more opportunities for young people to have leadership and create change in their communities. Our main goals are really to empower young people to create change, to nurture motivated learners and critical thinkers, and to excite young people about STEM by making it relevant to their lives and the change that they want to see, and then prepare young people for success in work and life. All of that through after school is the vector. And now we go to why are we here today? And we're here to talk about youth voice. Youth voice can look like a lot of things in after school. I think the span of what that definition means is constantly changing. And we think of youth voice as uh, giving young people the opportunity to make decisions in programming. And that can be a wide range of decisions, right? From what activity a young person might be participating in during the day to actually having leadership capacity and leading activities and choosing what those activities that they're leading are, to even more examples. But before I get into what youth voice is, and before I share some student voices on what youth voice is, I do want to take a moment and get a sense of who is in the room and what do you think youth voice in after school means and looks like. So here's where I'm going to bully people into coming off mute and sharing a bit. One brave soul. Who are you and what does youth voice mean to you?
Oh, I guess it's me. Somebody did put something in the chat, but I feel as though it's where the students are able and to express themselves with being able to be creative and with that teacher guiding them, that facilitator, like the person said in their thing, in their their in the chat. But that's just them having a safe space to be able to be creative and open to more ideas, but then with the teacher just being that facilitator.
Great definition. I'm so presenting. I do not have access to seeing the chat. So if someone would like to come off mute and share what was shared in the chat, I would love that.
I can share. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny McClure. I'm with TextPost, the Texas Partnership of Out of School Time. Been in the education field for 20 years, both classroom and out of school time. And I said, I think you said exactly right. Really thinking of the teacher, the staff member, the educator as the facilitator, but really letting the youth step into that leadership role, and which involves a number of things, and decision making and all of that, and letting them, guide the ship, if you will.
Yeah, thank you so much for jumping off mute and sharing. I think that's a great definition. Anyone else want to jump in and share? That is all right. There will be more opportunities for folks to jump in and share at a later time. I always say whenever I'm giving a presentation about youth voice and I'm starting and I'm an adult, that there's something wrong with my presentation off the bat, right? Because we're not hearing directly from young people. And so CS holds a quarterly focus group with young people across the country. And the last time that we met, the opportunity to ask young people, what does youth voice mean to you? So I want to share a video of the young people responding to that prompt and question so we can ground some of our thinking into what youth voice means to young people.
I can't hear it.
Can everyone not hear?
Cannot either.
Cannot
Oh.
either.
You know, you jump in and you do the tech stuff and you make sure that folks can hear, and it never works, right? We're all used to it at this point. Okay, let's see. Let's give it a go. Can you still see my screen?
No.
Yeah. Of course not.
We can see you.
Yeah.
I appreciate everybody bearing with me while I figure this out. Okay, let's give it a go.
I'll go ahead and start. But I think youth voice, like for me personally, means a moment of like complete unbiased presence, where there's not a moment where I feel I'm having to change my words or manipulate what I'm saying because of an authoritarian presence. And I think that's very important to get the most raw, critical answer you can receive. And so youth voice to me is something that's just raw and natural and what comes off right off the head without anything influencing.
And I was gonna say voice, I think it's nice to have like is like sharing, having a space to share ideas, your opinions, knowing they matter, and being able to have conversations with people, decisions that are gonna affect us, and about being able to lead things.
For me, youth voice means like having equal leadership opportunities and other opportunities no matter how old you are. Like a lot of times adults will say, "Oh, you don't know anything about that because you're only 12 years old," for example. I think youth voice means taking into consideration the words of somebody who is a child or a young person, no matter like how complex of a topic they might be talking about. Like they may have something really important to say, and a lot of times adults like push that aside or don't hear it all the way because they feel like it's like age discrimination but opposite.
For me, youth voice is like giving like people to have like opportunities to show what they think on matters. Again, somebody said it was like unbiased, so it just gives them ideas, like it allows them to express matters that affect them personally or what they think about it. So yeah.
To me, youth voice means like taking a stand for what you believe in and speaking out against things that maybe you don't agree with, especially when it comes to policy changes or those type of issues. And again, like many mentioned, it's fighting like speaking against adults who maybe don't know, like are gonna say that you don't know this because you're this young.
I would also say like honesty and then just a unique perspective. I think especially in terms of policy, it's more geared towards adults. And so if you have more young people who have like, you know, unique lived experiences and that sort of thing, that could really help make better decisions on behalf of us as a group.
And now I'm going to try to advance my slides without just playing video. There we go. So I have a few takeaways from what I heard the young people say, but I'd be really curious to hear what other folks kind of got out of what youth voice meant to those young people from our focus group.
I'm happy to go. Adriana Slaughter from Iowa After School Alliance. I think the piece that really struck with me was that saying what they need to say in front with no authority. I think that piece really stuck out to me in terms of those are kind of rooms we all want to be in. And so I think, youth more so just to say that stood out to me is when she said, being able to talk about things and without authority figures or without thinking that they're going to get in trouble or things along those lines.
Definitely. Anyone else want to share things that stood out to them?
This is Maddie. I'll agree because in my head, especially working with elementary, you're assuming that youth voice and choice, right, is it more deals with the activity in the program and them having. So this was a little bit different. It's like that. I want to have a space like Adriana has said. It's like this that safe space to be able to speak their mind, to be able to um, especially when they were talking about policy, being able to take lead in that, right? And be able to, it's like, hey, it's not just the adults, like they say, guiding the ship, that guess what? We have thoughts, we have ideas. We're thinking about these big things as well, and we want to be heard.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing up working with younger students as well. Later in this presentation, I actually have the young people speaking to what youth voice can look like for younger ages, since I do think when we think about youth voice, we really think of like teens taking the lead, right? And that's not the only way to do youth voice, and it's not how it looks like in a lot of programs. But I completely agree. I think that the thing that really stands out to me and what the young people said is what creating those safe spaces for young people to communicate their thoughts, feelings, preferences. That's really key to youth voice. And we often think that youth voice is just giving young people the opportunity to speak up, but you can't do that isolated, right? It's a change in culture, it's a change in mentality across programming, and then it's something that's built over time with your young people, because fostering honest and open communication with the students that you're working with isn't going to happen from day one. So it's something you build on and explore together. So we're going to talk a little bit about how your program is implementing youth voice. And one of the things that we're going to do to talk about that is talk about Hart's ladder of youth participation. I find this to be a really, really helpful tool for thinking about youth voice programming and kind of where we are and where we could be. I think it's really important off the bat to also note that while some of the terms in Hart's ladder sound judgmental, I don't think they come from a place of judgment. I think that beyond the lower rungs, so rungs 1, 2, and 3, which we will talk about in a moment, if you are doing youth voice programming at any of the other rungs, you are doing something right. And you can be doing that exceptionally well, and that's amazing. I think the idea of a ladder isn't necessarily that you're trying to move up the ladder, right? You can be happy and have healthy youth voice initiatives at any level. And just what those levels look like can be different. So starting with the first 3 youngs, they're manipulation, decoration, and tokenism. And if you aren't familiar with these words, these are kind of the rungs of Hart's ladder that focus on saying that you're doing youth voice work and not really incorporating the voices of young people into the work that you're doing. It's things like asking young people for their input and not doing anything with that input. It's things like saying that you do youth voice work and not actually doing any of it, right? Doing everything kind of in the name of the thing without actually doing the quality and important aspects of doing youth voice work. But when you start to get to level 4, 5, and 6 of the ladder, of Hart's ladder, that's where you start to operate where I think most after school programs exist. So number 4, rung 4 on the ladder, is assigned but informed. So that's where you're doing an activity in your program and you've decided on that activity and that's what your students are going to do, but you're telling them why they're doing it, right? So they have an understanding of how they're going to benefit from an activity, what they're trying to get out of doing that activity. But they don't really have input in what that activity is or how they're doing it. Rung number 5 is consulted and informed. That's where maybe you put out a survey. What kind of activity do you want to do? Well, we're going to do this activity, but here is why, right? And that's part of the open and honest communication with the young people. Rung number 6 is adult initiated, but shared decisions with young people. So that's one of those things where you come up with an idea for an activity, but maybe you're consulting the young people in your program about whether or not that's the thing that they want to do, how they do it, right? They get more input and agency into, this is the thing we're doing, but we would like to do it this way rather than this way. Rung number 7 is child initiated and directed. And I think that this is often where people think youth voice programming needs to go to, right? Which is young people are thinking of the thing that they're going to do, then they are leading that thing and have all of the control and agency in that, with an adult kind of observing, right, and providing support where needed, but it's really youth led and youth initiated. And that's fantastic. And this works for a lot of programs, but it's also not the model that works for necessarily everyone. And I think that what's fantastic about Heart's Ladder is where it ends up, which is rung number 8, which is that it's child initiated, but shared decisions with adults. I think a lot of the youth voice conversation is about elevating the voices of young people, and that's really, really important, and it's central to youth voice. But I also think that it's really important that we not devalue the experiences and influence that adults can make in the conversation with young people, right? So number 8 is really an intergenerational space. It's a young person has an idea and works with adults in the room to make their idea happen, leaning on adult expertise, maybe adult connections, right? But it's the young people driving that initiative. So I always think that this is a helpful framework for thinking about where a youth voice initiative maybe sits. And I'm hoping that you all will as well. So I would love to hear from you guys. What kind of programming do you do? Where do you fall, or where do you think your programming falls maybe on Heart's Ladder? And is there a rung that you would prefer to be on based on this structure? And I know that those are 3 big questions, so I might give folks like a minute to think and then come back together, and hopefully we will have a brave soul jump off mute and share out.
I'll speak. So this is where it becomes a little bit difficult, especially when you're at the beginning stages. Like right now, we're developing our program, right? We're reaching out to vendors, we're hiring teachers, we're coming up with our program. So definitely, I will say we're at that adult initiated shared decisions with children, just because we technically create the program ahead of time. But I do think a lot, even with, as specifically with my program, I do student surveys. So I'll do student surveys probably throughout the school year, definitely within that spring semester. So I know what worked, what didn't work from the students. We also get parent input. So that way, where I'm looking at right now with the program is based off of the students telling me this is what they liked, this is what worked, this is what they don't want in the program. So definitely their voices come into that and into place with that. But during the school year, when they're in those activities, right?
we get opportunities where students can create projects, students can do some teamwork, students get to decide kind of how that class goes a little bit and then say, hey, we don't want to do a mural today, we want to do this. So it's a little, that's why I say 6 would probably definitely kind of be a framework of where we're at. I would love to get to that top one, but we're trying.
Definitely. I think that was great. And I think that you're in a prime position, right, to move up the ladder with the start of your program, right? You can start doing things very intentionally to get there over time, especially since you're so engrossed in the planning stages. Uh, Anyone else want to share out?
Hello, everyone. This is Michelle Simpson. I actually got on a little late when you were in the first stage, but I was excited to hear what you were talking about. I serve in 2 roles, actually being on this call. I'm the coordinator of the Alternative World Changers, which is a middle and high school youth group here in Hampton, Virginia. In addition, I am the ambassador coordinator for BPOST, Virginia Partners of Out of School Time. So I was really excited to hear the topic because I am proud to say, and I say it with my head up, that we are at 7 and 8. Because on Tuesday, my kids, the students who have done all of the creation, they do all the planning, they are taught and trained to facilitate. They are taught to train to step into their space of confidence. It does not matter if they're introverted, extroverted, shy, outgoing. It doesn't matter. The training platform starts with them being confident and knowing that they have a right to voice their opinion. They have a right to speak. They have a right to share ideas. And I've always told them, you all have the answers. The problem is adults don't ask you the question. We don't ask them anything because we don't think they know. And we put them in those stereotypical boxes. And I'm looking at a pamphlet that they actually created. Don't know if you can see it, but they came up with 5 principles. They call it EMAT. And they said that they need us to embrace them, encourage them. They want us to work together, embrace and find resources together, make center individuality. That's the biggest thing. They want to be individuals. And as adults, they want us to make that central, promote social change, analyze the power in relationships. And they came up with the acronym, they came up with what they need, and they're actually presenting on Tuesday to 140 after school staff workers in our city because they did a presentation, a staff person heard it, and they reached out to me and they said, I don't want an adult training my staff, I want the kids to train. So I think that power in youth voice is giving them that opportunity to fall forward, feel it, understand what it looks like, empowering them to have that voice to get back up. You train them and then you release them, put them in that field and let them go. And I think half of our jobs would become so much easier if we can embrace that as adults.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Michelle. I love to hear how that training goes with the young people and the after school facilitators. So definitely keep us in the loop on that. I love that framework that the young people created, and I love that you brought that into the conversation. Anyone else wanna share out?
Hello. So I am the project director for 21st Century After School Program here in New Jersey, South Jersey. And uh, one of the things, because I used to be a site coordinator, and that was at the middle school level. And what I've done since being in this role is I've combined the 2 sites together to give those middle school students the opportunity to be more leaders for the younger students. So our schools are next to each other. So we have a 4th and 5th grade. We start at 4th grade, so we have that 4th and 5th grade building, and now I have the middle schoolers, 6th, 7th, and 8th that just came from that building go back over, and we've been very intentional on having them be we call them student ambassadors. So they create different as far as Like they say, oh, I had Miss Malone last year and I know how she taught this. So we've had students go and um tutor the other students that may be in that class, and they really have been able to, you know, master those skills. We've also been intentional on, with the younger students, also having a voice on theirs as far as their choice of activities that they would like to do. Now, for the most part, we are around the 4 and 5 when it comes down to that part of the activities, but we've been intentional on Fridays to have student choice. So that way they're letting us know like what they really truly enjoy. And then we really combine all the students together at that point. We've seen that has really worked. Our attendance is normally low on Fridays, but since we implemented that, it's been very high and steady. Especially with our older students wanting to stay on Fridays. That's a more little lax atmosphere, but now they have an opportunity to have more of a choice of what they want to do. So, and that comes with, we've done surveys, we do student advisory groups, those types of things. But I really want to, you know, definitely get to 7 and 8 this year moving forward, since we implemented that over last year and it really does work. So let's let's build upon what has worked last year to make 7 and 8 more in our practice every day, versus just not just on Fridays.
Jeanette, I don't mean to put you on the spot. What do you think 7 and 8 would look like for your program?
So that would more look like where the students they are more of the leaders. Like right now, and of course you still have to guide them, but that's more of being because they're still shy, you know, they're still 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. My high schoolers are more vocal, but just more vocal and expressing themselves more openly and being able to convey that information through an activity, through leading an activity, those types of things. That's what I see.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else want to share? All right. I'm going to dive into one of the barriers that I frequently hear when I talk to programs who are thinking about youth voice, not maybe entirely on board with handing over leadership and whatnot to young people. And for me, what I often hear in doing this work is that folks are afraid to tell young people no. And that's why they shy away, right? If we hand the power over to the young people and they come up with something and we don't see that as possible, then you have to break their hearts. And I want to challenge that a little bit and talk about how no can actually be an opportunity and a conversation that really improves your communication with young people and can increase youth voice in your programming. And so the example I like to give with this is maybe a little outlandish, but bear with me. And it's, we want to give the young people in our program the opportunity to choose something to do as part of our summer programming, right? So we ask them, what do you want to do? And everyone goes, we want to go to Six Flags, right? And you're like, I don't know how to make that happen. Or we have a policy against that, right? Or that's not something that we can reasonably do for whatever reason, transportation, cost. There could be a variety of reasons that your program can't take all of your students to Six Flags. But you've put it in their hands and they've said, this is the thing that we want to do as a group. And now you're afraid to say no. Young people are used to being told no. And I don't think that no is necessarily a bad word, right? Young people are used to being told no, but the thing that young people are not used to is being told why no. So that's really what I think my takeaway best practice for doing youth voice work is. It's not to be afraid to say no, but how why can actually engage in a conversation. So now you have a group of these young people who you say, hey, everybody, here are the reasons that we can't go to Six Flags. We don't have the money. Like, our program cannot afford to do this. Well, that's an opportunity for you to talk with your young people about why or how you can get the money as a program to do that. Maybe that means that all the young people in your program now want to do a car wash, right? To get to Six Flags by the end of summer. That's a youth-led, youth-initiated activity where the young people have decided what they want to do and then have taken the agency and the planning to then create the solution to the gap in funding that could allow them to go to Six Flags. Maybe it's a policy for your program that says, like, you're actually not allowed to take students off campus, and here's why. Well, that's a really valuable opportunity to have a conversation with young people to say, here's how policies for our program are made, right? Why do you like this part of the policy, or why don't you like this policy? Who do you need to talk to then to maybe get that to happen, right? And that could be an opportunity for students to talk to program directors, coordinators, school boards, right? To talk about how and why policies are implemented, and can really engage them in a process that all started with them wanting to go to Six Flags, but has now led to them gaining leadership skills, talking about education policy in their community, right? So and then finally, if the ultimate conclusion of all of that, right, is there's no way we can make it to Six Flags. There are too many barriers, right? How can we bring Six Flags to us? And that can be a fun activity for a classroom, especially of younger students, right? Of, you all wanted Six Flags, let's build a carnival inside, right, out of cardboard and whatever, and think about the activities that you wanted to do, and you all can lead those individual activities. And that's leadership in kind of a different way. And so I think that this really leans into then, what does youth voice look like for those younger students? And I really appreciated the comments, I think, from, I think it was Jeanette, talking about the difference in what youth voice and leadership could look like for those older students that are going to work with the younger students, but then also what choice then looks like for the young people. So we're gonna jump back to hearing from young people about what youth voice for younger students looks like to them.
You could use like for younger students, youth voice can like take form of like expressing preferences in like classroom activities, maybe like projects that they have to do, sharing ideas with each other, conversing with one another. Communication is like important within like all of this. So anything that's like communication related, because younger kids, like, I used to be like a really shy kid when I was younger, and then like I was not ready to be like put on the spot for anything. So like when you're conversing with other people, being all on the same level and like working on a project, I think that's easier for some kids.
Yeah, and letting them like lead their own things so they don't have to wait till the high school to lead anything. Let them make and give ideas and lead their own stuff.
I think keeping it constantly very open to like any person. I think when I see organizations at like my local school or different communities, I notice a lot of the times they'll have open spaces where it's open to anyone in any community. And I think making sure everyone understands that it's open to anyone is so important. And I think that's the best opportunity when you know a 9-year-old and a 40-year-old could be in the same room and talking about the same thing, but you know it's so fresh in that sense. I think that openness is so important. So yeah.
I feel like sometimes adults don't provide you with a safe space, like a place where you feel comfortable to voice your ideas, especially younger children. Like, there will be easily frightened or scared by complex ideas and speaking about them when they've never maybe done that before. So if there's not like a healthy environment where they feel safe with the adult and also comfortable enough to speak about what they want to speak about, I think that's really important. And that's like developed over time. It's not on the very first day, you're going to tell me everything you feel about youth policy. It's like built trust. And a lot of times adults don't spend enough time establishing that. One really cool technique that stood out to me from this program I did when I was in like third grade, I was around like 8 or 9 years old, but they had like an activity room where there would be adults who were like facilitating and like will help you if you need help with some of the activities that they had, but they were just sitting there and they were like quietly observing our conversations and like just kind of like an observation almost, but like the kids were allowed to do whatever activities they want from the table they could choose. And then they would just be like watching us and trying to understand what we were talking about, what was going through our heads as we were making those. They were like those STEM kits, you know, that you have to put together. I think something like that would be useful so the adults can know like what we really want to say without us having to go and tell the adults. That helps with younger students, especially because they might not be comfortable saying it aloud when they feel like somebody's listening just to them. Like if the adult is just sitting there and observing, it's a little bit easier and they feel more comfortable.
There we go. So I think that some of the examples provided by the young people, the thing that stands out to me is that for young people to lead, adults need to step back. And I'm not gonna add more than that since I think that the young people really uh said it all. But now that we've had some examples of what youth voice is, we've thought about what our programs are already doing, we can start thinking about ways that we can really start implementing tomorrow. And part of our whole initiative with this training is that there are two other training modules that accompany it. One where you get to hear more from the young people, and one where you hear from other programs that are partners with the Collective for Youth Empowerment and STEM and Society and doing this work really well. So I wanted to give the chance to share some of the insights on something that you can start tomorrow as a practitioner from other after school practitioners.
The thing that you can start doing tomorrow to uplift youth voice in your programs is start getting to know your students, building rapport and building a relationship with the young people who you're working with is going to give them the safety and confidence and energy that they need to start feeling like their voice does matter and to start using it. There's a really awesome quote from Bell Hooks. But basically she says something along the lines of like, if we claim to love our young people and respect them, that respect looks like listening to them. And so, yeah, listening and building that relationship are the two things that you can do to start letting youth voice take the center stage in your program.
Give the youth the stage, give them opportunities. And for some programs, this would be a big change. So start small. Again, youth voice is more than I want apples instead of oranges. Give them responsibilities, give them the steps to execute those responsibilities, step back and let them do it. And it could be something small. They could plan a portion of programming to start. Just the first 5 minutes of opening, let them do that. Let them sit down, plan out, what would be the perfect way to open programming. Let them do it. Easy peasy. And then you can take over for the rest of the day.
Having young people in their planning team, like having young people informing how you're doing your program. That would be like, right away, like having someone, like it could be elevating one or two youth to being a part of your project planning team that can help you be like, oh, well, we hadn't thought about this, like providing that youth perspective as you're planning. If you're planning a program for 200 people, like 200 young people, 200 youth, like have youth be a part of that process. And it doesn't mean you need all 200, you just need some perspective there so they can help you, and you're providing that valuable leadership skills. I think that people don't think about that, and like you could do that tomorrow. Like you just be like, who wants to do this? We have this funding to help support you to do this, you know, whatever honorarium or pay or whatever it is. And like, we would love your support and help on how we make this go forward. So that would be one thing I would say could happen immediately. I think the other thing, you know, is, I guess the thing that came to mind was like recognizing the small wins, like, and celebrating with youth. There's a lot of stress out there right now, a lot of anxiety and mental health challenges, whether it's like, you know, coming, you know, still ripple effects of COVID, which we see a lot, but then also just like the day-to-day, like, you know, social media and like news cycle and catastrophes, like there's a lot going on. So like the other thing, like finding ways to like celebrate with you, provide joy, provide space, like some open-ended time with like just like art activities or watching film, like just fun, like find ways to have fun, like, you know, and yes, there's service and there's the work that needs to be done, but are there also ways that you could have fun and ask youth what they want? Like that's another thing. Simple question: what would you guys like to do? How do you think we should, what could we do better with our program? Ask them to evaluate the work, the program that you're doing, and give you some, they'll give you good honest feedback. And then take it seriously and see who wants to help you make it better. Like those are some other ways that I think about, like what you could do immediately. Add fun and space and support, you know, ask them to ask, you know, what do they think of the program that you're doing, get some honest feedback, and then include them in the planning process to help co-create programs for them.
I would also say the thing that you can really implement tomorrow is really telling students like, or youth, like, hey, this is why you're doing this. And then, like I said, they can make informed decisions and decide what is best for them.
We touched upon youth voice. We touched upon what needs to happen for them. We gotta touch upon adults. They can't do it alone. And as adults, we have to hold the mirror up to ourselves to really say, what am I doing to steward authentic and intentional leadership within the young people that I am servicing? Who am I as a leader? Would be my question to adults, right? We ask young people who they are as leaders and who influence them. We got to ask ourselves that same question as adults, right? So that we can mirror that back. One, what we may have needed when we were younger. Two, what we've healed and we've evolved to in our adulthood. Or three, because it's just the right thing to do, right? So I believe that John Lewis always says like this quote of like, get in good trouble. Our young people are getting in good trouble because they're the ones that's actually doing the heavy lifting and the work. We need our adults to also make sure that they are lockstep and hand to hand with our young people of getting in good trouble.
There we go. So that was 5 educators from different programs that the CS network works with, and all of them have amazing resources to do the kind of programming that they do in your program, and we can provide links to all of their programming and resources. But being cognizant of time, I wanted to jump into some of the resources that we also had, which includes the connections we can make if any of those things resonated with you and you would like to talk with any of our partners, we are happy to make those connections as well. And so the first resource I want to highlight is our resource database on our CS website, and all of the links to these can be found in the bottom left-hand corner of the presentation. But our resource database has professional development opportunities, curriculum, and research all around the focus areas of STEM, civic engagement, and youth empowerment. And you can see that Venn diagram that I talked about in the beginning. They're all cross-listed with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And if you're interested in any of those in particular as well, you can filter by Sustainable Development Goals. But really, if you're figuring out ways to do more in the areas of STEM, civic engagement, and youth empowerment, this is a great resource to get ideas and figure out what your next steps could be. We have a series of partner blogs on our website that highlight the different programs that we work with. Again, I think this is a great resource for inspiration for programming, but then also valuable connections. Many of our partners have curriculum or professional development for educators in the out of school time space. So they can help you and provide that professional development, or we would be happy to have those conversations with you as well and connect you with partners that are the right fit. We have a community of practice for CES, and that's all programs that are operating again at that intersection. If you're someone who's doing this work already, we would love to connect with you and talk about what you're doing and what your programming could contribute to our community of practice. We really see our network as folks in this field that are doing this work that have resources for other folks. And we want to broker connections to expand the number of opportunities that young people have to engage with change making in their communities. And then finally, like I said, this training session is part 3 of a 3-part series where Module 1 is an introduction to youth voice with youth perspectives. Module 2 is program examples and strategies, so you can hear more from each of the educators that you heard in that last video that I shared. And then Module 3 is this webinar, which will also be available on this webpage once the recording is processed and uploaded. And that can be found at cs.org/project/videos. And then finally, we have an upcoming webinar. So if this is of interest to you, we have CES is hosting a webinar with Circle, MCFA Challenge, and Technovation on August 27th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. The registration link, again, is on this slide, but can be dropped in the chat as well. So if you want to talk more about how to increase civic engagement in your after school program beyond just youth voice initiatives, this is a great opportunity. We have a toolkit for practitioners coming out on how to do civic engagement in after school, as well as a report talking about civic engagement. And then if you want to learn more, our website is up on the screen, as well as the email for CS and our LinkedIn. And I can drop my email in the chat as well if you would like to connect with me directly. And with that, we have about 5 minutes left. So if anyone has any questions, I'd love to open up the floor just for 1 or 2 questions. And if folks don't have questions, we can call it a day.
I just want to say thank you. This gave me a different perspective, and also the Heart's Ladder to use for my professional development coming up for the new school year. So thank you for that.
Thank you for joining in your participation. I loved hearing about your programming and the insights that you had. That was my count to 5 Mississippi, and it looks like folks are dropping off. So thank you, everybody. It was fantastic to have you as part of the session, and thank you for your time and interest in Youth Voice and After School.